You take two proboscideans on the ark, so two kind of really basic primitive looking elephants. You can have, once these two get off the ark, every single proboscidean be a different species than its parent, and you still don't have enough time to get all the species that we find in the fossil record. On the contrary, if you increase the number of kinds, so let's say you've got 15 kinds of proboscidean on the ark, you can't feed them all. And what I mean when I say that is very specific. We did some math and we said, okay, let's take the best case scenario for feeding elephants today, right? We'll use juvenile elephants, we'll use their sleeping metabolic rate, and we'll use the highest quality feed, so it requires the least amount of space, alfalfa. The food that would be required to feed 15 pairs of proboscideans for an entire year would take up 60% of the space on the ark. Just the food alone. And that's not even considering the much larger animals that existed that required their juveniles, even if you're taking juveniles.
But once again, that is a false dichotomy. What if God put them into a state of hibernation?
But that's a false dichotomy. What if magic is his answer? Magic. So she used logic, she used reasoning, and she used facts. And his response was the comic book, what if? What if God of the gaps did this or that in order to make sure that the animals can survive? What if magic is this guy's answer? This is often the way that Christian discussions go when it comes to comparing it to logic, science, to mathematics. Because mathematically, with the size of the ark and the size of boats that we build today, it is an impossibility to carry 2 of every kind of clean animal and 7 every kind of unclean animal on the ark. Even if they were juveniles, it would be impossible. You would need a ship that's effectively about 26 miles long in order to do that. Even if you say that many of the species today were not around at that time frame, but evolved from it. So for instance, he had 2 wolves, and just in that short period of time, the wolves became dogs. And mind you, we're not talking about from 2500 BCE to today for them to evolve into dogs. We know that the Romans in 1st and 2nd century, 3rd century had dogs. We know that the Greeks had dogs. We know that the Chinese had dogs. We know that everybody around the world, for the most part, had dogs. We know that there have been various kinds of snakes all over the world, that if you just had 2 snakes, how do you get the poisonous snakes and the non-poisonous snakes and the boa constrictors and all these other snakes in such a short period of time? In less than 3,000 years, in roughly about a few hundred years, you have all these animals. You go from 2 brown bears to polar bears to grizzly bears to Kodiak bears to black bears to all these different bears that exist all around the world in a few centuries, no less. Just a few centuries. That is a false dichotomy. That is a lie. And the fact that your answer is what if magic is always the answer that Christians love to give. But your answers fail every time when it comes to mathematics and science and logically thinking. So just let it go. It's impossible for Noah's Ark to actually be a real thing. Whether we say they evolved, which Christians don't like, or if you say he was able to have all the animals on there and there was in hibernation. Even in a hibernated state, you still do not have enough. And let me ask you one more question. She just talked about feeding the animals. What about watering the animals? What about all the water that is required for junior elephants, for junior lions, for junior hippos, for junior giraffes and junior penguins, for junior of all these animals? What about all the water? Because the water that they were supposedly surfing around on this boat was a big mixture of salt water and fresh water. And there would have been a hell of a lot more salt water compared to the fresh water. The salinity of the water would have made every animal on the planet die. All the fish in the oceans and all the fish in the sea and all the fish in the rivers, dead. All the animals in the water, dead. All the All the little viruses, all those microorganisms, dead in the water. No more plankton. So oxygen levels on the planet has just dropped to where it's not able to sustain life on the planet. All the trees are gone. So no trees that are producing oxygen, they're gone too, because they're going to die being submerged for over a year and having all that salt water. And all the land would have been covered by salt water. And therefore, you can't grow shit on that land for hundreds and hundreds of years. So how was Noah able to plant a vineyard when he got off the boat and the land was all filled with salt? How does that work? It doesn't work. It doesn't. Noah's Ark defies science, defies nature, defies logic. It is a myth, a story that was borrowed from previous civilizations. And it's really just talking about the younger Dryas. That's it, just the younger Dryas. So y'all have a great day. Remember always, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.